Hey everyone, how's it going? It's Russell Matthews here. New comments have been made about how Canada plans on spending $100 billion in their pandemic recovery, and also the CRA has been seeing some new issues that are causing people to be locked out of their accounts, as well as a special issue that's caused a lot of people to have mistakes on their benefit taxes. And also we're going to talk about how the government made certain promises, chief among which is how they were planning on paying Canadians back some CERB money that they had previously repaid. They've made these promises, but they haven't given more information on them since the announcement, and it's leaving lots of people confused as to what's happening. But before we dive in, make sure to check out the links in the description where you can open up an investment account and start building your wealth. And if you haven't already done so, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell to keep supporting Canadian content just like this. First off, we're going to talk about something that we tend to talk about a lot here on the channel, simply because there seems to be a new issue every single week, and that is problems with the CRA. We see in this headline, very frustrating, some taxpayers still can't access their accounts weeks after being locked out. This is in relation to the issue that the CRA had where they removed people's email addresses from their CRA account. Now, the CRA says that they removed these email addresses because they found out that other websites had been hacked and that the email addresses and password combinations that were used for the CRA were the same as those hacked websites. And as a security precaution, they said, hey, we're going to remove this email address. You can get in touch with us if you need to unlock your account. They said that they'd be sending out letters in the mail that had instructions on how to unlock your account if you were in the unfortunate position that this happened to you. And they said, hey, only if you're applying for benefits like the CRB, the CRCB, CRSB, and you need access to your account, that's when you should call in and we can unlock your account for you via that method. But that raises a whole host of other concerns because, as you may know, those CRA wait times on the phone can be up to hours, and even after you wait hours, you could get clicked off and they'll hang up on you and you've been waiting there for 3 hours and you don't get your problem solved. So it's causing a lot of people a lot of frustration and a lot of financial hardship if they can't apply for the benefits that they would otherwise be entitled to. And despite the fact that this decoupling of the account and the email address associated with it happened around 3 weeks ago, there are still many people who don't have access to their account. They haven't received the snail mail. They haven't been able to get in touch with the CRA, and it's sort of emphasizing these problems that the CRA is having with dealing with all of these calls. Now, they've hired a third-party company to help them sort of deal with these issues, but as of right now, it seems like those solutions haven't been found. And I wish we could start there because I don't want to sound like I'm bashing on the CRA all the time, but take a look at this headline. The CRA says rare error in some tax slips lists repaid CERB as taxable income. Let me explain why this is significant. Just a couple of days ago, I uploaded my most complete guide on benefit taxes this year and how you can sort of manage that so you can pay as little money as possible. But a big part of that is the different forms that you're going to need in order to file your taxes accurately. Now, it seems like a lot of people are going to have wrong information on their forms if they were in the situation that they repaid any sort of benefit that would be included on these forms. Now, that could have happened if you applied for CERB and then later realized, hey, I actually made more money than I was able to while collecting this benefit. I'm going to have to pay that back. Or maybe you were somebody who paid back the CERB thinking that you were ineligible for it because of the net gross income issues. There's a whole bunch of reasons why you may have paid back a benefit at any given time. And if that's you, then you might want to double check these forms. Now, in that video I was just talking about, we cover all of the different forms you're going to need. One of them is the T4A. Now, if the CRA has made a mistake on your T4A form, the reason that's significant to you is that you could end up having to pay tax on a benefit or income that you didn't actually receive. It doesn't seem too fair, does it? So for anyone watching, I'd recommend taking a closer look at those forms to make sure that they have on their record the right amount of money that you received from benefits this year, so that you can make sure that you're on the same page with the government, because who knows, it wouldn't be a good situation if they think that you've received a benefit that they determine you're actually ineligible for, that you've already repaid, and they say, hey, you haven't actually repaid this. It could be a big mess. So I'd recommend trying to get that sorted out as quickly as possible. Now, the CRA says that if you have an issue, you should call this 1-800 number to fix the incorrect tax slips, but they also say that they're being proactive in issuing new tax slips to people in the accounts that they can identify that they've made the mistake. But if they don't notice the mistake on their end, they're saying, hey, you should notice it and you need to call this number. Now, this sort of next section in the article points out the issue with that, as 3 calls to the CRA have been unsuccessful as all the agents have been busy. This is a story we've heard time and time again. And the frustration is amplified by people who are in this situation and are trying to get in touch to get these issues solved. This person applied for the CERB initially, but then they realized they were better fit for the CESB benefit, but both were going to be taxed on her tax return this year. Now she called, but she wasn't able to get through to anybody, so this issue remains a problem for her. And to make matters a little more frustrating, the CRA replied on their Twitter answering a question that she wasn't even asking, saying, hey, if you repaid the COVID-19 benefit after December 31st, you're going to be taxed on it based on the full amount shown, even if you repaid it, and you'll just get a credit on the next year's taxes. But there's nothing in the initial tweet that indicates anything about the timeline of this, so it seems like the CRA is kind of just copy and pasting answers onto their Twitter to sort of make people feel like they're being listened to, but not getting any more detailed than these sort of pre-canned responses. In other news, we have new comments from Chrystia Freeland, the finance minister for the Canadian government, about how the Liberals plan on continuing their spending going forward. Now, this is spending that has supported programs like the CERB, the CRB, EI, as well as other business supports. In the fall economic update, her government pledged to spend $100 billion in the post-pandemic recovery. Now, as of right now, they haven't tabled a budget that is supposed to be the document that clearly shows us what this money is going to be spent on, who's going to be able to get additional benefits, what other programs are going to be created, and this is causing some frustration. And she responds to these comments in this next clip.
I've been surprised to read some commentary suggesting that Canadians may be doing too well for their own good. Some have pointed to rising household disposable incomes in the first 9 months of last year as evidence that our government acted too swiftly and too effectively to support Canadians.
Okay, interesting points. She's responding to some criticisms that the government has received about the way that they've spent in order to support people throughout the pandemic, saying that funds weren't necessarily as targeted as they should be. Let me show you a headline that clarifies this. Now, when this data came out, a lot of people were frustrated with the amount of money that this group of people received, saying that more than $636 million in CERB benefits were paid to 300,000 teens between the age of 15 and 17. Now, critics have pointed out that maybe these funds could have been better dispersed to other people who may have been in more dire straits when it comes to their financial situation, but the Liberals have come back and said, hey, we needed to cast a wide net to catch as many people as possible, and as a result, some people may have gotten more money than they necessarily needed, but that was a price they were willing to pay in order to protect everybody. That was the Liberal response. Now that we're heading towards this post-pandemic recovery period, lots of questions are being raised about how the government's money is going to be spent going forward. Are we going to continue programs like this? Are we going to support other programs going forward? And the comments that she makes here sort of hints at their plans. Now, as we're more and more heading towards a post-pandemic recovery situation, questions are being raised about how this $100 billion that the government has committed for this phase is going to be spent. Is it going to be spent on continuing programs that Canadians have grown accustomed to, or creating new programs, or how is this money going to be spent? That's the main question right here. And the problem is we don't really have an answer right now. You see, the Liberals are waiting to bring forward their 2021 federal budget. Now, this is the giant document that's going to go through exactly how they're planning on spending their money going forward, and that's the document that's going to reveal exactly what you can expect from the government in the coming year.
And our government will continue to do whatever it takes for as long as it takes to help Canadians through this bleak time, to prevent economic scarring, and to invest in a way that allows us all to come roaring back after COVID-19.
So they continue to reiterate that they're going to continue to support Canadians going forward so that everyone can sort of bounce back from the pandemic at the same time and at the same rate. But until we have this budget document, we're not really going to know for sure what's actually going to happen. And we should expect to find out pretty soon. They announced that they were taking consultations for this budget back in January. And since January, they've gone through various consultation periods, but the last one listed on this website where they have their timeline for the budget budget is February 18th. Now, as you know, we're well past February 18th. It seems that consultations for the budget are done. So the next step is bringing this budget forward and tabling it so the Canadians can finally know what is going to happen. Since we don't have this document, this budget yet, other political leaders have been weighing in on what they want to see in that budget and what they would do if they were in power. Let's listen into Conservative Erin O'Toole.
Great question, Annie. This budget, we've gone 2 years without a budget, and Canada's at a crossroads. I want the government to succeed on vaccines. I'm hoping to see more vaccines in coming weeks. But the crossroads is this. If Mr. Trudeau wants to reimagine our economy and pick what jobs and what sectors he supports, that's the wrong path. We need to support job creation in every sector, in every part of the country, so that people can get working, that families can be productive, the economy can open up. That's what Canadians want to see, not a reimagined Ottawa knows best. So we're hopeful that the Liberal Party will put the well-being of Canadians before their own election plans, and the budget will tell.
So here he's really taking a shot at Justin Trudeau's comments that he's made about how he really wants to build back Canada better. Now, when he's referring to this, he's talking about investing in sectors that are more poised for growth and other ideas where they can sort of target areas of the Canadian economy that are most poised for growth so that we can have a better job market and a better Canada altogether, or at least that's the Liberals' idea. Instead, here, Erin O'Toole says we need to focus on jobs in all sectors, not just green jobs, not just tech jobs, but all sectors. That seems to be the point that he's trying to hammer home here. Now let's take a look at the Green Party's leader, Annamie Paul. Now, they don't have the most power in the House of Commons, but often the ideas that are growing on the fringe parties here will work their way into the Liberals' ideas and other political parties as well as they start to garner more and more support.
We have emergency benefits, but emergency benefits are just that. They're a temporary fix for problems that need permanent solutions. And so this is the time to talk about what are the programs that we are going to put in place once those benefits are done to make sure that people are better protected and that everyone in Canada has the opportunity to live a life of dignity from the very first day to the very last day.
So it's very clear that that party's focus is on the social safety net for Canada and what's going to happen with these benefits that are ongoing right now and whether or not they're going to transition into something a little bit more permanent. They're, of course, in support of a universal basic income, something we've talked about a little bit here on the channel, but a lot of people think that maybe this isn't the best approach and that instead we should continue with our targeted programs like EI and these other programs that help support Canada's most vulnerable instead of just sending out a blanket check to most of Canada's population. But no matter what your stance is on all of this, we have to wait for the budget to find out what's going to happen in our future. If you haven't already, hit the notification bell so you can find out exactly when this happens because, of course, I'm going to bring you that information right here on the channel. Now, you've probably heard the saying that no news is good news, and this is the case in a lot of situations, but not when the government makes promises that they're going to provide more information in the future and then just leaves it there and waits and doesn't provide that information. Let me explain what I'm talking about. There was a big issue with the CERB, and the Canadian government requested that many people pay back the entirety of the benefit they received because they didn't qualify due to a conflict with the net to gross income issue when it comes to qualifying for these benefits. Now, at the time, they said that they were going to have to pay this back, but then they later came out and said, hey, if you were somebody who was in this situation, you're not going to have to pay this back, and if you did pay it back, we are going to pay you back the money that you had repaid us. So money's changing hands back and forth all the time in this scenario. And a key point is that they said, hey, we're going to have more information on how you can do this if you pay this money and you need us to repay it. We're going to give you more information on that soon. Now that was over a month ago and we still have no information. So there's certain people who are essentially entitled to benefits that they repaid because they were told to repay it, and now they're waiting to get their money back. And it seems like the CRA or the other governing bodies that are in charge of this, they're okay with waiting a little bit when it comes to paying back money that they owe Canadians, and they're a little more hasty to try to get the money back from them. Another thing that we're waiting for more information on is the CRB and EI extension. Now, you remember that they said the CRB was going to be extended and that they didn't have to go through the House of Commons to make these changes, but on the CRA's website there hasn't been any update indicating that these benefit changes, the expansion of the CRB an additional 3 months, there's no information that that's actually something that's happening happening, and it still says that you are ineligible after 13 periods instead of the updated 19 periods after the added 6 periods or 3 months. But the extension that we actually have to get through the House of Commons is the employment insurance extension. You might remember that that went from 26 weeks all the way up to 50 weeks, I believe, if I have my numbers right there. Now, that bill that was introduced last week in order to push this through the House of Commons, it seems like that hasn't made any more progress because the House of Commons hasn't sit, so it hasn't had a chance to debate it or move forward throughout the procedure that would allow this change to actually be implemented. Now, you'll remember for many people, the deadline is going to be the end of March when they may lose out on some of their benefits or some of their EI payments. So here's hoping that they're able to get through this process by the end of the month to make sure that there's no interruption here. Now, since these politicians haven't actually met in the House of Commons, we also haven't seen any progress when it comes to the bill that was going to bring forward many different changes, such as the $1,200 boost to the Canada Child Benefit. And that's something that's been in the House of Commons being constantly debated and sort of stalled and delayed all the way since early December. So because they haven't met this week, we don't have any updates on that either. It's getting a little frustrating. But that's a whole bunch of information, and I hope you found it helpful. And I want to know what you think about it. Let me know down in the comments. I read every single comment and I reply to as many as I possibly can. So if you want your voice to be heard, feel free to jump in there. We also have a Discord community that you can hop into where we have real-time conversations about investing, personal finance, a little bit of real estate, and these benefit issues. And make sure to check the links in the description where you can open up your very own investment account. It seems more and more so these days we're the only ones that we can rely on. You have to rely on yourself, especially when it comes to your financial future. So if you haven't already started, I'd recommend checking those links out. And if you found any value in this video, it's likely that either a friend or a family member could too, so I'd really appreciate it if you could share this video with them. It'll help grow Canadian content right here on the YouTube platform. And if you haven't already done so, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. And with all that said, thanks so much for watching, everybody. I really hope this video has helped you out at least a little bit, and I'll see you next time. This channel is supported by viewers like you. Thanks, channel members.